Name? No. Name? No. Name? No. Name? No. Name? No. Name?
Yeah. Are you tired of being lied to? Are you tired of being manipulated? Are you tired? Do you want your freedom back? Or are you worried about what people think about you? I'm a space station. A lot of our kids wanna kill themselves. Bill Gates, they don't need your help. The new normal's a prison cell, and your jab won't go over well.
Things like producing child to death and just shoot them right into the vein.
Hold on. First off, Bill Gates, viruses are dead cell debris, and you telling me it ain't a felony to perform experiments on humanity? Hold on. Let me back up. I don't talk big or even act tough. If you ain't heard about the flat earth or the resistance, that's us. Neil Tyson, I don't like him, always lying. Pseudoscience, now they claim helicopters flying somewhere on a Martian island. What? Don't you just love NASA? Astronauts in swimming pools splashing. They get a huge bucket of cash, and we gotta survive on only rations. Sorry, lost my composure. Tends to happen when I start exposing. Fields of passion just start exploding like the Challenger, but they're alive and going. NASA, what a moon mission tapes. Oh, you threw them all away? Getting AK from Mars, but 5G towers are 1,000 feet away. Killing trolls every day. We are not out in space, and we are not on a spinning ball as shown by Eric Dubé. And if you ain't on that level, better get up out my way. When you break up out that matrix, the truth is on display. If Earth is a sphere, with a radius of 3959 miles. That means any horizon distance measurement is currently on trial and can be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's why the black swan killed the globe. And here's how we know, cause the horizon is beyond 9 miles from 1 foot, you clown shows. Globers, annihilate them. Space is the second law violation of thermodynamics while you're waiting. Research entropy and educate them. Oh, and Newton's gravity was changed by Einstein. Don't be mad at me. Look up his theory of relativity and then you realize the globe's your enemy. Shout out to the Freedom Alliance. Yeah. Killing trolls every day. We are not out in space, and we are not on a spinning ball as shown by Eric Dubé. And if you ain't on that level, better get up out my way. When you break up out that matrix, the truth is on display. It's on display. Truth is on display. The truth is on display. Earth is flat, give me my mind back now. Earth is flat, Earth is flat. Earth is flat, give me my.
Kidding, just kidding.
You suck.
You don't.
All right,
You
cool.
just
So
don't, man. Fuck it. You're cool where you're at.
is Crypto here? No. Oh, he's here.
Yeah, man. So I literally just need to pop to the loo, but I'll be right back.
All right, no worries. We'll just get it started because it's the same argument anyway. But yeah, so to lay down how I want to structure this, actually, let's pop the stream over. Oh, not on
My
YouTube,
bad.
so it's all good. So how I want to structure this is mostly a compilation video that I put together of other people's work, namely Steve from FE Core, right? But it's I added my own stuff for sure. I added a bunch of overlays and extrapolation, some of my own videos, but mostly it's on the shoulders of Titans, right? So the first,
he's not the greatest with overlays. Him and Bob both could have used somebody to give a more visual representation. So that's what you've added to it.
no, I used his stuff and kind of overlaid it to other stuff. He did, I think, great visual representation. That's the whole thing, is they built the model that we're going to use.
When they first started, they weren't very good at this.
Gotcha. So like the first 6 minutes is this Glober lad who sent us this video of Eratosthenes and how it debunks flat Earth and how he's never had a refutation. So it's a 6 minute video, and we're gonna watch the whole thing. I know it's gonna be like really really bad, but it's as Globers go. He's not too whiny, and I think he explains it in terms that we can understand, and he breaks it down, I think, pretty effectively. So we're gonna watch the whole thing. We can shout out and ask questions and talk over it. I think most of this we can talk over, I think, but there's like one part that's 15 minutes that is crucial, that when it comes up I'll let you know, and we can make everyone watch that, because I think it's kind of the crux of the whole counter argument.
Do we have to? No, I'm joking. Rock on, man.
Everyone
Well
ready?
done.
All right, here we go.
Hello. All right, so I couldn't find any great diagrams or illustrations of this online that actually show real measurements so you can compare. So I just decided to make this myself. I enjoy doing this kind of math. I'm kind of a math
Is it
nerd,
just
so
me,
whatever.
or is it funny that
So
it
I
started
did
with a
plot all of
2D
this out on a
model
graph.
right off the bat?
This poor kid, I mean, it's all right. It's all right.
I had to do a lot of different
He
equations
thinks this
to
is
get
solid
the curve right,
slam
to get
dunk.
the measurements right.
that's a
And if
cartoon
anybody's interested in seeing that, I'd be happy to show you. I doubt anybody wants to get that nerdy into it, but ideally you should just be able to
Shane, can you turn the
see
volume up on the
this
video?
graph that this all makes sense. If you feel like
Yes, you can. I'm a PC. Well, MacBook.
There's a speaker in the lower right corner.
Oh, that's fucking weird. Okay, fine. Let me just do it.
For me,
getting something wrong or there's some kind of slide of hand going on here, then please point it out.
Put it on 100. Put it on 100.
Yeah, I've just done mine to 200, so it's all good for me now.
But I promise you there's not. So this is also on the fly, so it's not going to be super clean. I didn't really like try to prep this talk or anything like that, and I don't plan on posting it anywhere. But basically what I
Too late,
wanted to
buddy.
show is that you can prove with math objectively whether or not you're on a curve or whether or not you're on a plane when you measure shadow lengths at the same time at 3 different locations. So I'm also going to show why like it's confusing and how it's really easy to think that you can get 2 different answers with the same numbers, specifically when you do this with 2 points. That's where a lot of people get the Eratosthenes experiment wrong. And so, yes, and this doesn't prove like circumference or anything like that. This just shows whether or not you're on a plane or a curve. So, without further ado, I'm going to be comparing 3 poles on a flat plane versus 3 poles on a globe. So we'll start with 2 points because I want to show how this gets confusing. So 2 points, if you know the distance of the sun on a plane, actually you don't have to know the distance of the sun. If you measure your shadow length from pole A.
They look. That's converging. Exactly. Yeah, all those rays should be parallel and not converge on one point.
Your shadow length from pole B, you know how far apart they are. You can draw lines like this, and they will both intercept at the light source. Like that's not like really a debatable thing. That's just like how lines and angles and light work.
Yikes.
I'd hope that we can all agree on that.
We cannot. No.
I mean, that's really.
If you
That's a small focus point when the sun is supposed to be larger and send parallel rays so the rays don't converge. Yeah, that absolutely doesn't prove what.
I know, but the way
what he's doing here. You know what he's doing? He's literally reifying the geometry that he's presenting here and just ignoring real world data. He's just saying real world data doesn't matter. So the reified geometry must fit the reified geometry, which of course it has to because that's what he's reifying.
Yep. So that's definitely one of them. Notice how he says they have to converge at a geometric point. We can all agree at that's how light and angles work. And I'm like, oh my God, I disagree on every point. I disagree with your interpretation of light. I disagree with how you're measuring the angle. I disagree that they have to converge at a geometric point in the sky. It's physical. Okay. So he's already made like 3 suppositions as if they're fact, and onward he goes to reify his own. Yeah, exactly that.
And he also mentioned that he had multiple answers as well. So,
well, he does have the 3rd one. So I think he does break it down pretty well as to what most globers would argue with the Eratosthenes example, right? So the ones who don't argue that it's 2, they will invoke this 3rd, and I don't think that they know as much as this young gentleman knows about it. So at least I wanted to give him a shout out. We'll play his video, let him explain the problem for flat Earth as he sees it, which again we're going to address, but is definitely a problem for flat Earth, right?
You look at this.
Last point I wanted to make
on
was
a curve, you're going to.
Before we go on this isn't what we observed, let's say, on a coastal sea line observation, like 2 points 30 kilometers apart. They both have their light paths lit to them to the sun.
Right. Here we got 2-dimensional Cartesian coordinates displaying convergent lines where parallel rays are supposed to exist.
Yeah, we're
in
assuming
a spherical coordinate system, but yeah.
Right, we're assuming Euclidean geometry in perfect orthographic views that.
This kid is. I want to debate.
See that these shadow lengths are different.
He's got one.
Instead of being 1 and 2, you've got 1.12 and you've got 2.43. These are the same distance from this 0, 0 coordinate. But as you can see, as this curves down, these shadow lengths are going to be longer. And this is where it gets confusing because if you don't know whether or not you're on a a plane or a curve, you could technically get the coordinates of the sun in two different locations. So I'll show this. So technically, you could get a shadow length of 1.12 and a shadow length of 2.43, just like we saw on the curve, on a plane, and this shows exactly that. If that's the case, then the sun is going to be in a completely different location. So this sort of shows that.
Angle is dictated
so
by
just by measuring two
position
poles,
of the light source.
it's not really conclusive whether you are on a curve
This
or
isn't
on a
exclusive
plane.
to a sphere.
Well, he's only gotten to 2 points now, and he's saying
If
that
you're on
it
a
works for
curve,
both,
the
so.
sun's going to be in one location, and if you're on a plane, the sun's going to be in a much closer, I guess you could say, local location.
Just because you're
so
on a plane, it's going to be local.
that's sort of where the Eratosthenes experiment sort of goes wrong for a lot of flat earthers, is they'll say, oh, you can do the math two different ways and get two different answers, and it works both ways. That's not the case whenever you introduce a third pole, and I will show that. So if we go back to the curve, you've got your shadow length of 1.12, 2.43, and then over here, you're going to have a shadow length of 4.6. Now, if you don't know whether or not you're on a curve and you're trying to prove it, then you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to see where all three lines converge, or if all three lines converge, because they will either converge or not. So if you keep the same shadow lengths, if you have 1.12, 2.43, and 4.6, if you're on a plane, this doesn't work. All three lines do not intercept. Yeah, you can see that here. Like this shadow length of 4.6 is not physically possible. It's not mathematical.
Well, so right here is the part where I think he's right and wrong, right? Like, so if you extrapolate it this way, they don't all converge on a single physical point in the sky. And I don't think that's a problem. It's just, I'm going to apply the observations in a different way to make them match reality. And he's just going to go, well, actually, no, it's impossible. And the reason that it works for the globe model is they just push that sun out to almost near infinity, making it effectively infinitely far away, which is how the angles match up, right? That's the only way they match up. It's kind of a cop-out to solve the problem in the first place.
Possible,
Right.
if you
So
are
just
on
a... Just quickly, yeah. I mean, the issue again is that he's not bringing real-world data in. He's not bringing actual measurements. He's just saying, this is what the reified geometry says.
Yep. Right. Yeah, but so, again, this is about the level that most globers will present. They're not going to bring their own measurements. They're not McToon, right? They're not going to say, I did this and it proves this. They're going to refer to this sort of geometric model, and they're going to say mathemagics, and then it's going to go away, right? That's how they do
it. If you're on a flat plane. If you're on a flat plane, that shadow length is going to be 3.75, and you can see that sun is in that B location. It's not in the first location that I showed. So you can have a shadow length of 1.12, a shadow length of 2.43 on either a curve or a plane, but once you add a third point, your shadow lengths are going to be different. Yeah, you can see that here, 4.6, 3.75. These are the only two physically possible options. So this is an experiment that you can actually do in real life. You can go to 3 different places. You can measure the shadow lengths at the exact same time, and they have to point to the same location.
Flat Earth has answered this in a meme. Have you guys seen this one before? Anyone?
Yeah, meme.
Never seen it. Right. So right here, we have 2 strips with equidistant dots to mark distances. We have 3 sticks equidistant apart on both flaps, right? And one flap is curved to mimic the curvature rate. And we have a local light source doing the same shadow. So we have the measurement of the shadow. The one on the right is 0, right? Because it doesn't go past the dot. The middle one is one equal dot for both, right? Curved, and the other one is about 2 equal dots for further away. So we have, look, according to that experiment and this data, both of these are applicable. So I'm not sure what he's talking about.
And depending on the shadow lengths, you can determine, okay, am I on a curve or
right. So
am
this
I on
is
a
a
plane?
mathematical contextualization for something that you can debunk in like real life.
Hopefully this makes sense.
It's weird.
I'm really interested if anybody has any rebuttals to this. I've looked around as much as I possibly.
So many.
Yeah, the main argument that it has to converge at one point though still isn't addressed. With this meme, this just presents the mathematical impossibility, as being totally possible. He presented it as impossible, and it's totally possible because here we see a real demonstration showing that it works both ways again.
Good online to see what the flat Earth.
What he's doing, which is what a lot of globes do, is they say, if my worldview is correct, then how is my worldview not correct?
Yeah, that's kind of the way they do it. But like, so this kid put forth the argument that we can address in multiple ways, though. So this one refutes the math, as far as I can tell. It's refuting the essential assumed parameter, which he put forth at the beginning. And the second one is the argument that they have to converge at a physical point. But I think that one will be addressed in like 20 seconds.
That was meme war bets.
To this
that did this? That's awesome.
Just simply can't find one. Most of what I see is that
he's still a dick.
They'll look at the Eratosthenes experiment and they'll just look at, if you've got two different points, then you could technically be on a curve or a plane. But like I said, this falls apart. You're not going to get the same third answer.
Oh, look, more memes.
On a curve or a plane. It's going to be something completely different. And this is an experiment that a lot of round earthers, I suppose, have done and have tried to show flat earthers, and I have yet to see any like real response to it. But I'm open. I mean, I
hope this kid sees this video when we're done with it, by the way.
Like, I'm open-minded about it.
Sure.
So if anybody can,
the lad from Witsit's Telegram who sent me the question in the first place, who forwarded his video that was sent to them, will probably figure it out and send it to him.
Show that you can have the same 3 shadow lengths and the same point converging like this, then I'd be highly interested in seeing that.
Anyway, so here's the next part. Well, so it's just a demonstration of what he was showing, how we would measure things like this, right? Here's the other component of it that I think is a valid criticism of flat Earth. I think like the sunrise angles in Australia over a flat plane, specifically the light distribution and solstice and equinox things, those are things that we can't explain without using something like Walter Bislin's like azimuthal grid of observability. So, something like how we sit and I've been arguing. Right? Yeah, thanks, Walter. Absolutely. Because that solves everything on this point. But here, let's show the legitimate question that I don't think we can answer without it. Right, so here we go. He's doing the same thing. He's adding different points of observation and saying that they don't converge. It is valid. I think that's right. And again, they do fix it the same way by wrapping it around a ball, thus making all vectors pointing at an infinitely far point converging infinitely far in the distance, meaning it only goes parallel. They make them all parallel, and they go, look, we solved it mathematically. It's proof. And they didn't solve shit, right? Like,
but can you just pause this?
Yep.
Sorry, just on that last bit. Like, are they saying that sunrise is being viewed in Australia at night?
No, I think it's got a halfway terminator line, which it isn't how the lines of twilight work on a globe, interestingly enough. But in this created perfect terminator line, exactly 50% of the world is covered in darkness, right? So there is no twilight in this animation, actually.
Yeah, but also that would imply that days are always 12 hours long, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so like this is a legitimate criticism, though, and like I just think the globe answer is a cop out. They didn't fix it, and there is a real problem there. And the observer based azimuthal grid, the curved visual limit of space, the visual limit of curved space rather, is exactly how you would explain it. If each person has an individual corpuscular ray, which is what we're going to go into in a bit, then it definitely makes sense that this would be the problem. So here's another, I think, demonstration of a similar issue. I think it's to do with the equinox and the observable time and date sunrise angles. I mean, I don't know of any other way to solve these issues, because I believe that the data from timeanddate.com is correct. Right? Like, I don't think they're lying about that. I just think that the solution they present is a cop-out, and that's not it in reality.
Okay, do you see what they're doing here, though? Because what they've done is they've said that the sun's 93 million miles away, but for the purposes of this, practically, that might as well be infinity, right? So what they're effectively doing, so what they're effectively doing is they're saying, well, they're not presenting it in this way, but this is what they're actually doing mathematically as applied to geometry, is that it's so far away that it might as well be infinity. So anything divided by infinity is 0, right? And so therefore, they're all going to point straight up, because that's 0 degrees, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah, take an azimuthal Cartesian coordinate system transform and put it to a cylindrical coordinate system with a ceiling of infinite height. Oh, wait, that's exactly what they did. Yeah.
Exactly, of course. And that's inevitably what's going to happen when you do that. It's just a math trick.
Yep. And it's not even solving. So like this video and these videos present a problem for both models, and then they present a cop-out solution for the globe going, haha, flat earth, like, gotcha. But it is a legitimate thing that we have to address. So I think, all right, man. So the best way to address it is to understand this like fundamental video. I took 15 minutes of this video from Steve at FE Core, because it's like literally the most influential video that I've ever seen on the nature of the sun and how to interpret the sun. And I know that I've recommended it to everyone, but I'm gonna make everyone watch like 15 minutes of it here. We can definitely interrupt and pause it, but everyone, it's definitely something we should pay attention to, because this is kind of like the crux of the whole argument.
It is our research, modeling, and experiments that have made it very clear to us that all current models are wrong. The main reason for that is because they all start with the wrong premise that the tropics form the actual paths of a physical object like the sun or moon. Most flat earthers also have very little hands-on experience in astronomy and proper experiments, which led to an immense pile of incorrect assumptions and false claims regarding their model commitment and bias towards their current held beliefs. To show in a simple way that the sun, for example, is not a physical object, we have measured the disk size of the sun when it moved directly overhead. That result ended up in a 39.8 mile diameter sun. That is a very small object compared to the size of the Earth. If you use that size on any projection on dates like the equinoxes, when almost everybody has a sunrise at 90 degrees east, you will soon find out that most azimuth angles will never work with an object that close and small. If you take any flat projection and place the small sun on the equator on the equinox and place yourself at sunrise, on almost all latitudes, the sun is directly east of your position. If you were able to move north or south in seconds from top to bottom, that small object will remain fixed at its azimuth angle on the horizon, which by rule of geometry makes it impossible to be a small physical object. This led us to do more research into the properties of the sun and its behavior in the sky. We have come across so many false claims and highly questionable ideas about the motion of the sun and moon and stars that we find it's our duty to correct these claims. Some claim the sun moves in straight lines, which is a false claim as shown in the following images.
Oh man, that one's beautiful.
Anne's arc of
And
horizon.
it can be verified by tracking the speed of the sun on its azimuth and declination in a 12-hour time span.
Wouldn't Globers just say that's perspective?
I don't know what that said. This one though, this one is a particular pinhole photography type. They take it over a year, and this one is particularly interesting because the model that they create after they take their data and like run it through, it matches this observation exactly. This is from a separate channel on YouTube that's got nothing to do with them, but they definitely put forth this observation that matches the analemma and the annual analemma and apparently the daily analemma of the model that they produce after taking the azimuth of the elevation angles at the same latitude for like every day for a year. This one's awesome.
There have also been claims that the sun moves in a circular path, which is also incorrect.
Elliptical 23.43 ecliptic, right? We all know that.
Although when you go to see the Arctic midnight sun, it gives the impression of a circular path, since any observer has to rotate a full 360 degrees to follow the sun. But also with a circular path, you end up with the same problems with regards to sun angles on any given day of the year. The hyperbolic paraboloid shape of the sun analemma is not just a path over a year time span.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing, right? It's not a 2D representation, it's a 3D hyperboloid. That's what the analemma represents. That was mind-blowing to me when I first saw it.
So that means it might be increasing and decreasing elevation as well.
Yep, 100%.
But that same motion is
Definitely
found
gonna
in
get
the
into
sun's
that.
24-hour cycle.
That's in the Netherlands.
This drift pattern becomes obvious when you track the sun with high-end trackers.
You can't trust those Dutchies.
That's my country.
Like Los Mondi trackers,
Definitely don't trust Deutsche Bank.
and just track the azimuth of the sun and do not use the correction adjustments of the
Germany.
tracker so that it runs on its nominal speed of 15 degrees an hour. The drift pattern is also equal and opposite on both sides of the equator, which means that this small 39.8 mile diameter sun is moving across the sky at various observed speeds north and south of the equator. After 2 years of research and modeling, we were stuck and couldn't make it work to
Crap. Various observed speeds, he said. So that leaves, in my mind, two different understandings of that. It means that there's a source and then a projection. So there's a source of the sun and then a projection, and we only ever see the projection, which represents itself in our personal azimuthal grid as it rises and falls, right? So it rises and sets because it comes and goes, essentially. But he also said, wait, hold on, what did he say?
The drift pattern is also equal and opposite on both sides of the equator.
Right, so he said the speed changes only relatively. So the actual speed of the sun doesn't change, but the apparent speed does. So measured by the ground position, even on timeanddate.com and from a page in Alex Gleason's book, also on like the chapter of the eccentricities of the sun, he clearly says it's about average, about equinox, about 900 miles per hour ground speed, and then it goes up to like 1,200 miles an hour or 1,100 something miles an hour for one of the solstices, and then back down by the same amount to slow down. So like it definitely markedly speeds up and slows down, as far as I can see in all models.
Which means that this small 39.8 mile diameter sun is
the
moving
exact
across the
reverse
sky at
engineer
various
of
observed
the
speeds.
globe speed relative to the latitude.
Yep, exactly that.
Jeez,
North and
dude.
south
So
of
yeah,
the
it's
equator.
literally it's literally the motion of the sun, dog. They just wrapped it around a ball and made it symmetrical. Dude, that's these guys.
Right? You gotta tip the hat at some point when you
You really got to tip the hat, dude. You really do.
Well, it's more of like less tipping the hat. Well, it's a very small hat, isn't it? So you
it's a tipping
I
of
mean,
a very small hat.
whatever
Yes,
hat whatever the size of the hat may or may not be that we're tipping, it's pretty crazy.
After
that
2
they,
years of research,
that they
A
did
very slow hand clap to the very small hat.
that.
almost like a rub.
Silent rub.
and modeling, we were stuck and couldn't make it work to model the sun or any object accurately. We started from scratch again.
Dude, right here is like the most influential part of my understanding and interpretation of the sun's motion and position, and being like, right here is what it's mostly based on. This was such an epiphany to me when I first saw it.
After looking at photos of crepuscular rays of the sun, which all flat earthers have seen a million times, we came to a revelation many, if not all, flatheads have overlooked. When you look at crepuscular rays piercing through clouds over a lake or plain, for example, the angles of the rays end up at the actual light source, which is just above the clouds in most cases. But we know the sun is not right above the clouds. We started wondering what someone would see looking back from the other side, and if he or she would see the same thing. Imagine a scenario where you see these rays over a lake. Those rays are lighting up a spot on the water. Now put another observer right across the lake looking back at you. Can he see those rays in that lit up spot on the water like in this animation? Let's take that one step further and give the primary observer seeing the rays a long pole with a mirror attached at the end. If he were to reflect that ray hitting the water to the observer on the other side, would he then see a reflection of the sun in that mirror?
That's mind-blowing.
Keep in mind the distance apart here is only 40 kilometers, and where the sun should be for the observer on the other side.
So right here is the crux of the problem of the Eratosthenes measurements and proposition, right?
To make these light angles in 3D software, you will need, like we use.
Sorry, that didn't slap me in the face as hard as it sounded like it slapped you in the face. Could you
yeah. So
maybe
this
repackage?
So this is the personal crepuscular ray theory. So if like the sun acts like a rainbow, actually he didn't quite explain it yet. I'll ruin it. I kind of jumped the gun. I was like, oh, this is the part that gave me a revelation, but it didn't happen yet. Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Used here a local light source. But in reality, when you move to the other side of the lake and turn around to look back, you will have the sun at your back. Therefore making it impossible to see the rays in the first scenario or the reflection of the sun in the mirror. We have therefore come to the logical conclusion that those rays are personal for any observer, as someone looking back cannot see the same thing because of his position towards the sun. Now, if those rays are personal and cannot be seen by anyone else but the observer himself, that indicates that the sun is a personal or local objective projection. This can be verified by anyone by doing the opposite side crepuscular rays experiment, like in this animation, and see that someone looking back, someone seeing those rays cannot and will not see the same thing. A rainbow acts the same way as the sun, being that you can only see it at a specific angle, and you cannot walk around a rainbow as it will always move away from you. And you cannot see the opposite side of a rainbow. A rainbow is a source projection, and its source is the sun. Therefore, if the sun is also a source projection of an unknown source, we can start modeling the path of the sun for each observer on Earth. We did this by taking just one longitude, that being the 0 UTC meridian on Earth. And inputted the data from observations for azimuth and declination of the sun and traced the sun object for that location for a year for each 10th latitude north and south of the equator, and just let the data run its course for a year. But the model became so heavy with data and tiny hair-thin tracer lines that even with a super machine, we couldn't render the result.
Dude, imagine how complicated that'd be. An object that appears to be everywhere at once because it is.
After some trial and error, we finally managed to get a clear view on the end result.
Fucking toroids.
And even with our sun being an equal distance to the observer, the shape and layout ended up in a torus field around the Earth.
Whose video is this, Shane?
Steve from Flat FE Core, I think. Yeah, he's awesome. I put his link for the video that I used for this part.
We still have to figure out how to do
within that field.
Yeah, exactly that.
So now that I see that, I follow the reasoning for the ladder.
Right?
Proper 3D vectoring to get all the observed speeds and changes in the motion of the sun, creating a more true shape.
Did someone say uniform
became very clear to
distribution of
us.
light?
Dude, so I haven't seen Steve post new stuff in a while, but he did recently post a video that I think clinches all this synonymously with what I'm gonna argue at towards the end. So I think if he would see how we handle it, he'd absolutely agree. I think it's a fantastic. Like his early work here was foundational for the understanding of how I think it works now, right? So I think it's probably not just me.
That based on Ken Wheeler's research into magnetic holography, that the sun we see is projected into the electromagnetic field in the sky. The objective sun follows the magnetic field lines that are unique for each location on Earth. So the real sun is a source coming from outside of the so-called firmament, which probably uses light polarization that is projected into the magnetic field and rendered through the atmosphere. It is no coincidence that all sun arcs combined create this torus-like field, and this is version 1.0. As soon as we find out how to use equal distance 3D vectoring and a formula on the angles in the data sheets from observations, we can then get a true shape in second by second motion in the field lines.
So here's an example of a source projection, right? That you see, well, if you see something above the firmament,
Magnetic field lines.
so if you see something above the firmament projecting down into, creating a source projection, opposite, different. Like so, the far sun over there would be what we see and what we manifest, and what each person observes as a personal crepuscular version or personal crepuscular ray version of that, right? I always think of this demonstration when it's like, oh, what do you mean a source projection?
So I think it'd be better video with our commentary.
This torus field is by no means a stationary field, as the sun moves north and south during the year.
The magnetic ley lines.
We animated this in what we call the cosmic breath of flat Earth, and this shows.
Oh yeah, dude, there's definitely some possible correlation with the magnetic ley lines, the path of the sun, and perhaps even tidal nodes and infradromic points. If you overlay those two things, the magnetic ley lines combined with like where the flux fields move, and then combine it with if you see like the infradromic points, the most dense points of tidal management, where they regulate the tidal amplitude around them, like those points I think do loosely coincide with magnetic parts. So I mean, there's definitely an argument for that.
That by simply increasing the current in the field from the North Pole, you then push the field south, and by lowering the current, it flows back north again. It can also be pushed back and forth by an outside magnetic field from beyond the Antarctic, 90 degrees south latitude. The southern magnetic anomaly is also a moving anomaly, and who knows what more lies beyond the southern latitudes, all of which have influence on the field. From a creation standpoint, it must have a function as well. If we animate all sun positions over a year, the animation gives the impression of a wave going around the field like an outside source pushing and pulling on the field and projecting its image, that being the sun or moon, in it.
Isn't that amazing to me, dude? This part right here. A wave through the field. So like if ether was real and the sun was like this giant electromagnetic propagation wave that like creates current and ionizes gas to create color, if that moves through the field, it's almost like it manifests in the field everywhere it goes for each observer. That seems crazy.
At times that appear, yeah, at times that resembles the wings of an angel. Or a pair of wings.
It's almost done, I think, and then I go into some other stuff.
We do not know yet what, where, and how this outside source is mechanically working, so to speak, but from an engineer's perspective, everything that works like a machine or clock must have a basic principle and laws of physics to discover its nature. We just have to figure out where to go from here and what experiments can be derived to either build on this or modify the basic concept. With this concept, we can boldly say we have created a working flat Earth model that can be held up to scrutiny, evaluation, testing, and experimenting to either verify or debunk certain aspects of this model. It is therefore with great honor and humility that we present this first and only working flat Earth model with an actual base in geometry, science, and observations. In the coming weeks, we will be releasing ground views of this model to show that current sun angles are dead on correct.
So yeah, so this is from like 5 years ago, and there's a slight part 2 that he did a couple months after this one, which I also included a part of at the end. But since then, dude, I think we've come a long way in building on this argument, which I think this is like the foundation of it, right? This is essentially the foundation of the personal azimuth of observability, no matter how you spin it. But he's about to like lay the foundation for it, right? The only other video he posted completely corroborates what we're gonna argue.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously a lot of their arguments rely on either the sun or the stars, but the stars, if the sun works like this, then obviously the stars do as well, right? So
exactly.
So like if that's how that works kind of optically with what we see, it's all personal, then there's no reason to assume that any of it proves a globe at all, like on its face.
Yeah, that's a deep one, dude. Like that's a deep understanding that like I've definitely come to. I think Witsit had that realization, but it's not gonna be for everyone. Not everyone's gonna see it that way, I don't think. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
100% agree, yeah. This part's like super epic, so I'm just gonna let it play.
Love the music.
Yeah, this model is so sweet. So this is pretty much the end of the 15 minutes of the integral part. And this, so we're like, So we're like halfway.
Up. That's a number. Right up. Make it play.
So we're like halfway through the whole argument and the whole position.
Oh yeah, I like that.
That's the hell of 3D modeling. Oh man, I almost don't want to say it, but that model that he just presented looks a lot like the Bison's model of like the sunlight with all the bendy lines included. All the bendy lines, the superfluous lines that I always turn off. If you include them, they make that exact shape. Hold on. That's weird. Right.
It's almost like to model it out, you have to, model it as a hyperboloid or whatever.
And you have to use a observer-based azimuthal grid, like this right here.
Yeah.
This right here is what it would look like on Biswin's model. It's like when he says it looks stupid. It's like, oh, well, we took measurements of real world and stacked them up and modeled them, and actually they came out identical to the model that you say doesn't work. It's pretty funny.
I mean, that's a good one too, dude, because it uses their model of how they interpret light traveling and stuff and ray tracing.
Yep. Look at the block domain wall, the dielectric plane right there. Oh man. Look at all the sacred geometry in that one.
As you watch these two animations play
So yeah,
side
and then
by
another
side,
video that I put together.
You can see that the perfect, rhythmic, repeating, constant motion of the electromagnetic
Stole this part from
field
Karen B.
goes quite nicely with the same cyclical pattern that the sun and moon make every day, every year, every season over the flat Earth.
Watching this and the amount of nuh-uhs, I don't think we can even count.
Well, yeah, no, this isn't for Globers, like specifically. That's why. Yeah, this isn't a Glober presentation.
No, that's not right.
Here's Disco Ball Earth for Kiwi.
The berry, you got North Star flares hanging from the tippy top, interacting with the black sun, creating all the celestial bodies up top. I love it. Thank you for that, man.
I love that one. All right, onto the analemma. Say a couple quick words about the analemma, the solar analemma, which is an important aspect of understanding the celestial phenomenon. If you look at what this means, it's just a graph or a plot that shows the position of the sun in the sky at a single location at the same time of the day, each day, every day for a year. And if you do that, you get, this pattern that everyone's familiar with. And the cool thing is that if You look at Walter Bislin's wonderful model, and you look at the sun's path over the course of a year, it literally forms this pattern in the personal dome, or the azimuthal grid of observability, or the azimuthal grid of vision of each observer. It forms this pattern perfectly, and you can definitely see it. There it is right there. I think I even made another version of this that has the analemma drawn on. Let me see. Yeah, so there it is. So you can see exactly what it's talking about. This is the path that the sun takes over the course of a year for every observer on Earth. Notice the shape: fat infinity bottom, much fatter than the top, meaning south much bigger than the north. It's also how we get like the equinox and the solstice and all them wonderful things. I drew it again. What? Right, and then there's this meme that sort of explains it all. It's explaining the analemma over the flat Earth and how the sun elevation as it goes further out and raises in elevation as it comes closer in. Goes faster and quicker in the middle and slower out towards the south. So this really lines up. And if you think about it, if you look at the observations of stellarium, of course. Yeah, what I just said isn't right. I didn't realize that. No, it's faster out towards the south, slower when it comes in towards the north. But we'll look at that in a sec. And you look at, this is, a weird viewing mode circled around the observer, but this is the sun's ecliptic. This is the path that it seems to wobble. If you look at it, this is from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer. This is what an observer over the equator would see. Makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And if we bring it back to where we started with here, let's see. This part, starts with the 23.4 degree tilt. Everyone knows what we're talking about, the tilt that they say the globe Earth has to maintain the seasons, right? It's actually, I think, as Walter Bislin modeled here, an actual inclination of the sun as it circles over flat Earth. It's not an actual flat. It doesn't lay plumb to the surface, right? It's at an angle, and that angle gives us the solstice and the equinox and the wonderful sun and the analemma. And that 23.4 degree tilt right here of this sun's path is what they extrapolated to the globe to make their globe lore backwards compatible with the observations of reality, right? It's funny that you can take the eclipses they put on the Mercator and re-warp them back towards the Gleason's map, where they make perfect sense as cyclical patterns and teams of eclipses present in the great astronomical cycle of the Metonic cycle, right? This is Patricia's picture.
Yeah, but boats go over the horizon, Shane. So GG.
Look, dude, the analemma matches perfectly. Oh yeah, so
dude,
here's,
this is awesome.
So here's a wonderful analemma like real-time video, so we can see what it looks like in real observations in case people haven't seen it. This dude pretty well describes it and lays it out. All right, so so technically you need one picture like maybe once a month to give you 12 points to get the solid shape, but he does it every day.
Gee Williker, look at that fish. Mm-hmm.
I love that I ripped the background music for this from somewhere else. I think it fits nicely. So note that as it goes to the south, it goes lower and further, and as it comes to the north, it goes higher and closer.
Say that again. Lower and
further.
In the south.
Yep, lower and further, and it's actually faster, but like only relatively.
Right.
So here we bring it back to the ecliptic. So we can probably mute that a little bit. All right, so we can actually see the analemma. We can see the bow-guarded, backwards compatibly drafted Sun's ecliptic, the 23.4 degree tilt of the sun. Bislin's model showing the proper distribution of daylight, day and night. This is an annual clock, so it's going from solstice to equinox to solstice, right? So back to the summer solstice, and that's going to go back out to the equinox right here, over to the winter solstice for the one, right? So the Globers always say that they don't have an explanation for it, but, you know, this makes sense really in any projection. This is the actual light distribution on Earth. So this we stole from our buddy Concaver to show an actual sun and then an apparent sun, right? So the actual sun circles over, the apparent sun appears to rise and set in a circular motion over the observer. Basic stuff. Another illustration of the sun's journey using the personal as the grid, right? So solstice, equinox, solstice. Same demonstration here. It's amazing how it's always portrayed in the same way. You can tell by this picture where the latitude is. It's at 45 degrees. And here's an animation based on an observation from our boy Brian Leakey, who correctly noted that in the summer solstice, the sun's path in a day appears to make a happy face or a smiley face. In the winter solstice, it appears to make a frowny face. Now, like, the people who argue from Australia say that the sunrise angles don't work on flat Earth. But again, if you take an azimuthal grid and put it over the observer and account for the curved visual limit of space, then you can easily match observations to the flat Earth model of reality. So here's a nice animation that goes quickly showing you from summer how it rises a little bit north of east, and then it's zenith, and then it sets a little bit northwest, and then flip it to the same position for the winter solstice. Notice how it's down below in the lower corner instead, doing the same rise and set, or as Brian Leakey put it, a frowny face. And that's true anywhere over Earth. A basic depiction of perspective and how we see something that comes and goes as it rising and setting, right? So it doesn't actually rise, it only appears to rise for the observer. The same ecliptic visualization from the equator, what the sun's annual path from tropic to tropic looks like. This would be straight up, right? Everyone sees that as an inclination, though, obviously. The example we saw before was at 45 degrees latitude, which, of course, in the flat Earth model, latitude equals the declination of Polaris, so the further away you go, the higher, the lower it sinks. Here's another depiction of the path annually of the sun. This is a good one to hone in on. It does the analemma. And again, it goes faster and lower as it goes to the south, and slower and higher as it comes into the north, for us here in the north. Here's a wonderful animation of exactly the comparative speeds, right? The one on the left is the winter, and the one on the right is the summer. Relative speeds are different. I think this one goes on for a good bit. It's a wonderful one-for-one correlative depiction of exactly what we're talking about with the speeds comparatively for this winter versus summer and what happens on the solstices. This is what I keep having to think of when I keep having to talk about it, right? Because this is what makes sense to me. This also would match the vortexual ether wind, as Alan describes it, right? As the old G's who tested this stuff would describe it as well. It says it doesn't depict the path because this does use a circle, and as we covered originally, it's not a circle, it's an ecliptic, right? So it would have a slight tinge of ellipticity.
Ellipticity.
I think it's Alan knows it. Ellipticity? No.
Yeah, ellipticity or Elliptosthenes. Eratosthenes is his other brother.
Ellipticity and wobbleosity?
Wobularity.
Wobulosity.
They backwards engineered wobulosity.
That's the velocity in which you're wobulating.
It's wild delicious.
So right after this, there's a depiction of the path of the sun that I got from Gleason's book. Actually, he made a perfect depiction using his map. Go figure, and he perfectly depicted the path of the sun takes, and it's this wonderful ecliptic, and you can't really see it here because it's not in color, but it does do ellipsoid, right? So it great spirals out from the center. It does exactly this pattern right here, out and in, and then down and up. So at A, it's at the solstice, and C is about the equinox. And again, another visualization of it high and close and low and far. Right? Here's an example of a quote flat Earth debunk, right?
Oh,
that
okay.
all the
Yeah, I did have
anti-flat
that
earthers like to
backwards
throw
the other
around. This was
day.
actually just a pretty good animation, so I'm going to show a little bit of it. It's about sunrise angles. It's And about this is trying to wrapping match it all up up, sort of. observer-based sunrise angles using anything resembling the Gleason's map. And typically, we'd have to argue that this is, a matter of personal perspective, that the sun is sort of a personal rate. Each corpuscular ray is personal to the observer. That's what I think. That's what the azimuthal grid of observation shows. So let's see what they're arguing here. I added that animation to remember that it's just a globe projection like any other. So right in the middle of Africa, 23.5 north, and that's 0 that. Okay, so they do one observation, and it matches up. They start to add. So right here again is the argument that we started with, right? The proposition that sun angles and elevation angles don't line up with more than one observer. The principle from Eratosthenes with more than 2 points, and the same argument from the beginning with the solstice and the equinox, sunlight distribution, as well as the stars, right? All these are the same problem, and all of them they fix the very same way by copying out and pushing it to infinity. Add more and more and more and more, and if they're trying to look at the same physical actual object for actual location, it doesn't work, it doesn't line up, it gets crazy looking like this. This is always gets me. They straighten it out, and look, it all works because we all have them pointing the same half-ass direction, right? That's mathematical awesomeness. That's absurd. What a cop-out. We'll just move it infinitely far away, then all the vectors match. It's goofy. Now, I'm not saying that this is not really a debunk, because if you look at the personal dome model, because thanks Walter, he actually outlines this perfectly. Now, if you bring it back to where we started here, it gave us this observation, right? So 23.5 degree north, right at 0 latitude at the equator. Let's see, can we find that? Oh, look, it's already lined up. So here it is, exactly as outlined there. Here's the first observation they started with, right at solar noon. One observation, check. Good. Except it doesn't break there. We can move this observer all to the other places that they had those elevation angles matching. This sun would be. This is an apparent position, and this is the physical position. If we move this around, we can see. So with multiple apparent positions, it works out perfectly. Perfectly modeled with the azimuthal grid here. Thanks, Walter. Personal positions, right? Solves this problem at least perfectly. No issues whatsoever. Each person sees the sun on their own arc of horizon, right? Their own personal grid of vision. So because each observer has their own personal grid of observability, you can actually move this around. All about this, every ray of light that they traced in their video, you could mimic right here. Right, so I'll play them side by side then here. So here's their ridiculous debunk, and here's each one of these observers having a different elevation angle to match where the sun is, without trying to move the sun a billion miles away and have everything be parallel, which is just such a cop-out. You see, totally works. Totally works. Can be any one of these observers will see it at a different elevation angle, and they all line up. And since we're on about light rays and the solstice and the equinox and what's possible, here's a quick little video I put together showing the possible permutations of light, for all the different times a year, on the globe model using the Mercator, and on the flat Earth model showing a whole bunch of ways on how this works perfect. So this is a nice compilation, all shot, right? Every light distribution pattern mimic how, we have the source projection with the top right of the flashlight, mimicking creating the sun patterns. The only refutation to this as a glober is like, okay, then you have to prove a firmament, right? because I don't think the light distribution works, and you don't get the coffee cup caustic effect without some sort of reflective firmament. And I do think that there is one, and I do think that it makes it possible, these observations possible, like sundogs and things like that.
So I'm not saying this is the de facto perfect model for everything, but for flat Earth, this explains an awful lot of actual observations in reality regarding the celestial objects. All celestial phenomenon, I feel, is explained by this personal grid of vision, or personal azimuthal grid of observability, or the personal dome model, whichever your flavor you want to call it. This is the same concept. It fixes a lot of things. I would say without this, we don't have an argument for the different sunrise angles and sun positions all over Earth and the equinox and the solstice and things. With it, it works perfectly, but without it, not so much. So all the other flat earthers, unless you guys have,
do you guys see the hold on, that image, right? That's playing with the stupid light rays. That's the one that
observability,
the model
or
that
the
they made
personal
look
dome
like
model, whichever
identical.
your flavor you want to call it. This is the same concept. It fixes a lot of things. I would say without this, we don't have an argument for the different sunrise angles and sun positions all over Earth and the equinox and the solstice and things. With it, it works perfectly, but without it, not so much.
Right there. Move that around and it forms the perfect toroidal model that they built from the 3D modeling earlier. I thought that was funny.
So all the other flat earthers, unless you guys have a better idea, instead of a whole bunch of nuhs like Globers, we should probably get on the same page. I just think as flat earthers, we should all try to build each other up and support each other instead of tear each other down and bring each other down, right? We don't want to be crabs in a bucket. We want to all be supportive so we can take the movement forward together. Thanks, guys.
The burden of proof now lies on both camps to empirically verify which one is correct. Like demanding the ball supporters prove empirically that the sun is 93 million miles away.
So like wrapping it all up, this is the second video from Steve
proving it's
that
an
I took a piece of.
electromagnetic projection.
I think it's awesome. I think it wraps it up nicely. It sums up the heliocentric module for understanding what they think it's composed of and what it is, and of course they have no idea. And as we said when we started crypto, the truth is also often more magnificent than anything you could think of in the first place. And honestly, we have no idea what the sun is, how it does what it does, how it stays up there.
Yeah, I agree.
It does lend itself to some magnetic field correlation. Like I said, look up the correlation between hydrogen, extreme heat, and magnetism, and then try to figure
And
out
since
what
we
you
have
get.
been getting the excuse a lot that spectral analysis shows hydrogen and helium, that will not count since the light of the sun is just interacting with the top layers in the atmosphere, which by density gradient would be, you guessed it, hydrogen and helium.
Right, so that's the other thing that's really funny is they know what the sun is composed of. It's a burning ball of hydrogen and helium that goes through hydrogen, helium, and gas, and all the way to iron until it burns out. And they're like, okay, how do you know that? Well, we analyzed the light that coming off it. Okay, but if the sun is in the atmosphere and the highest, like the lightest gases go up top, then it's ionizing those gases as it moves through them. And you're telling me that those ionized gases are what it's comprised of? Then you're a fucking idiot.
Back to the model. In our current setup, we have the sun moving in a perfect circle around the observer. This is done by placing the objective sun at an equal distance from the observer. But based on angular size change and the speed of azimuth and declination, the sun has all kinds of variations in its path. The time and position data is correct, but it is our consensus that the actual sun remains at a constant rate of speed. Therefore, the observed speed changes, which are equal but opposite north and south, must be created by the dimensions of the field itself changing. This is also expected, as electromagnetic field lines will change dimensions when another charge source is in its vicinity. To solve this problem, and therefore create a perfect layout of the field lines, we have to make the speed changes and angular size changes based on distance created or lost by the objective object, giving a 3D perspective of the path. To do this, we assume that the source object has a fixed orbit at a constant speed all year round, and that the season changes are created by the current change in the field. So between each time increment, the objective sun must travel an equal distance in 3D space.
That's an
That is the
assumption right
formula
there.
we seek to create, a visual of the movement of one field
I'm not
line
sure if
as
that's
well as the
correct, but I
motion
do
of the
love
entire field.
I do love the
Thanks
ideology.
for watching.
Right, so there's an actual sun and there's a projected sun. It's a source projection like a rainbow, which is itself a source projection of so the sun creates rainbows, but the source projection has properties that you can identify. Like you can't actually go to it. It doesn't exist in reality, i.e. it's not a physical object in the sky that lines would converge upon no matter how you look at it. Good shit. That's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions.
That was
Well
awesome.
done. Yeah, that was tight, man. It's a complete body bag. And it reaffirms the azimuthal grid, which, you know, is a necessary component to explaining all of this. It's actually like the counter component to the, you know, other proposed component of uniform distribution of spherical light.
Right? Absolutely, dude. Like, I can't think of a way to solve these problems without utilizing this. And, like, I think Witsit said the same thing. I don't think we have an answer for this without it. I would like to hear it if we have it. Otherwise, we should all get on board with it, is what I was saying before. And here's the ecliptic overload from our buddy Habitat Verdad, right? Our Spanish true earther from Telegram.
Shout out to your boy, dog.
I always like to play it. It's awesome.
I love the
What, Crypto?
I was just saying I love the filthy house music in the background.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
He adds his own flavor to it. I love it a lot. I'm gonna bump it.
Yeah, dude. I think everybody's kind of catching up to the idea of like how medium containment works, and then when you have the containment and the container and you understand that premise, then you start to almost pack it down to your perspective again. So you kind of go outside and then you come back down to your perspective and start to realize that like things are literally, I think, predicated would be the correct word, and dictated literally from where you perceive them, where you're standing on the coastline of a beach as an example, and another person could be standing 30 kilometers away from you down the same coastline, and they will have their own independent light path lit to them on a sunset observation. Well done, man.
Right, man. That picture you put at the beginning actually says it all. That was perfect. Like, that's exactly the argument. And why it's false.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, and that's the thing where, again, right, just to reinforce and bring it home, that you have this mega container, right, and then the last point that you brought home in this entire thing within the last few months is this: you also have a personal dome of observability, and it's like, no, it's not that our domes touch. It's just that you have to perceive things where they are. Or where you see them from. And it also brings up an interesting question: if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound, right? Like, is the sound being perceived, that kind of thing? So it's like, are you perceiving the sun from where it is? What's your interaction, that type of stuff? Yeah, I'm gonna shut up now.
I just wanted to mention, sorry, completely off topic. This is the sort of filthy house music that if you visited Turtle Peak, he would take you to a secret club around the back alley where they were playing exclusively for like 4 hours.
What's up?
I barely heard Crypto. What did he say?
Yeah, it was super muffled.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I said if you were to visit Turtle Peach in the Netherlands, he would take you to some secret club around a back alley somewhere that no one's even heard of, where they would play exclusively that music for 4 hours.
Isn't that right, Gabriel?
Fucking drink. Next thing you know, you'd be mollied out and sweating.
Nah, I'll root for you, Michael.
I know you will. You asked me to marry you, homo.
No, he said homie, not homo.
Yeah.
Dude, so like the azimuthal grid fixes daytime celestial observations as well as nighttime celestial observations. I found that wonderful. Dude, here's the critique that Walter put in. He says the equator determines, so elevation angles to Polaris obviously denotes latitude lines. It's funny that is how they derive the globe model. The elevation angles to Polaris at 0 puts it exactly at 3959 miles above the observer if you're under its zenith, and all the angles work out from there. So when Bislin, the guy who created it, his main critique is, how does the azimuthal grid of vision know its latitude, Witsit? Well, yeah, funny, joke's on you. That's how they derived the globe model, was that exact observation. So yeah, it's hilarious.
with that same argument again, if my worldview is correct, then how is it not correct? But I don't understand.
Yeah, if I'm right, tell me how I'm wrong, dude, or whatever.
Dude, there's that meme that's like most people aren't looking for the truth; they're just looking to be taught that what they already think is true. They want to be affirmed, like, yes, yes, I like being right. Oh, am I still right? Yes, I'm right some more. All right. That's the kind of people that do like cursory like internet investigations and get like a fact check and go, phew. Oh man, for a second I thought the government was lying.
Oh god, I almost had to think of myself there for a minute.
I mean, not naming any names, but would Tim come to mind?
Everyone's picking on Tim recently.
I'd say the quality of the background music in these videos is phenomenal.
Yeah, I robbed a YouTube channel and use it for all my stuff now. A good thing I'm not on YouTube, right? I have to fight with copyright. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, I can get down to this.
Yeah, these are all the animations that I made by just overlaying, you know, the wonderful compressed grid view mode of Stellarium and a nice azimuthal grid over Walter Bisslin's model, so it showed actual, you know, real life star observations and how that would look. The thing that the last thing I do want to show here is this video. No, wait, hold on. Almost that video. Well, maybe this video, whatever. This shows the proper size of a personal azimuthal grid, right? It's not the tiny thing in the visible model. I think it represents about half of the visible sky. So it's exactly what the globe model purports, right? When it says half of the sphere is visible. Well, no, it's about half of the sky that you can see celestially from any point on Earth. And if you wrap that around a sphere, then yeah, same way they solved the same way they solved the problem by pushing it to infinity instead of actually solving it. They say, well, no, it works on the Google model. But if it's about half of the celestial sky, then this observer in Alaska seeing a sun rise and set, it would exactly match our observation. So I really think that what each observer can see is roughly half of the sky, and that matches all real-life observations in Stellarium on flat Earth. Cool. Let's bring it back to the Discord, so the stream. There we go. So what do you guys think? Any other questions?
Yeah, so you said we live in like a Hunger Games type arena, or
does my personal dome touch your dome, and does that make us gay?
Yeah, dude. If the domes overlap, like, does the world end?
Gay! Space is fake and gay. The inherent globularity in this one is strong. Cogdis never looked so painful.
Well, cool.
Alan!
Well, thanks everyone for coming in and showing up and watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was tight, man. Thanks for making me watch that sun video by the FE Core lad.
Yeah.
I seen some of it a while ago, but I like breezed through it and didn't really value the significance of it. And like learning everything I know now in tandem with the ASI grid, it's like, you know, everything just makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, dude, I recognized it immediately, and that's why I recommended it to everyone. But as a bro, I knew that my bro you wouldn't watch it, so I figured I could find a way to make you watch it. Because you're not the only one. You're not the only one I know who didn't watch it, and I think that it's so influential.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the thing. I've seen it before, and I just didn't. And if you said to watch it again, I would watch about 2 minutes of it, realize I've seen it, and then not watch the rest of it.
And not believe in the lessons, yes.
Yeah, then not reach the same conclusion that you did, because like I'm just unaware of it. So yeah, that was awesome, man. Shout out to the FE Core lad.
Yeah,
our
dude.
boy Troubling Trebizzi just went live too, bro.
Nice, dude. I forgot the last video that Steve from FE Core posted about 3 months ago was an azimuthal grid video from Walter Bisslin's model demonstrating all the principles which he laid the foundation for. So I think if we could talk to him, I think he would agree wholeheartedly that this is the absolute correct interpretation of all his work and his modeling and his representation, and probably his interpretation. We definitely should
hit him now. Hit him up, dog.
Because like the only thing he posted was this, like that wonderful watch carefully video that shows all the animations and descriptions of someone just like playing a video. Dude, it's like I think you saw it and you went, oh shit, it's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, some pretty crazy shit, isn't it? Like, although, I mean, this is what I said earlier. It's like it doesn't really matter what the truth is. It's all fucking crazy anyway, right? So this isn't any crazier than like nothing exploded, right? And created a bunch of space testicles, right? You know, this is not more crazy than that.
Light doesn't bend that way, or whatever they say.
Oh, I should probably play those AI videos. Whatever. I like them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just feel like now that we've underlined the mysticism of the globe model as being mysticism, this is appropriate.
What sort of mysticism?
This kind of mysticism.
Oh my god, so embarrassing. So embarrassing.
Flack, shut the fuck up. Cuddles, shut the fuck up.
That's just the same soundbite.
I changed it a little. All right, that'll do it. That'll do it for our presentation. So thanks everyone for tuning in on Rockfan and Odyssey and Rumble. Thanks Salty Sergeant for picking up in the comments. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.
Well, you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, it's part of the show. Didn't they teach you to reach for the stars while opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars? Vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged, caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires. No answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours. Imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of gish galloping wars. No remedy can save the lost, in love with the yarn. I'm tired of walking into refracted shards, poor science displayed by disgusting bards. Soaked in sin with your dupe is delight and a new hand of cards. Been so long, seems like for love I'm just too hard, I'm just too hard. I said, welcome to the show, where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know. Intoxicated 8 makes you believe you're spinning in space while you have no shame or grace. It's a disdainful state I used to contemplate, how to save myself from my own self-hate. Wonder why I was even made with a dreadful fate, forced to try and awake with a full plate. No one to help me stay awake or educate. I've had to liberate and fight through hidden gates, but my brother, heaven could never be late, and rockets don't work in space. It's all fake, the show is on Mars. It's a joke, but you're too far gone, it won't be long. Fepe's beak is strong. We have our song and we march along like streams of knowledge leading to God's holy pond, and lives of truth that hits the bong and sings the song, turns mankind from the wrong. We come in peace with a holy gown and all of us wearing our holy crowns. So the earth is flat and we probably just won't get along, just to go along. I said, welcome to the show, where you don't know if it's part of the show.